people want to know what it's like to sleep with other men. If they haven't, if it's not about lots of sex, and I mean, if they did that, that's manageable too. But I think women who've never, or a guy who's never been with anyone other than their spouse, I don't care how conservative the community is, I don't care how much they love each other, they're going to spend a lot more time just wondering, God, what would it be like to have sex with someone else?
And everyone has different priorities for their relationship and their life and whatever, but I do, you know, I think it's a fairy tale, you know, and sometimes, you know, in some situations it works out, I guess, but I would always choose experience over, you know,
virginity.
Well, just over saying, hope this is the right match, you know, like,
right.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's a more informed decision, among other things. I will say I had this conversation with someone from a traditional culture when I was 18. It was in India, and a guy there was just floored by the fact that I told him I wasn't, because I felt this way for as long as I can remember, and he was floored that I didn't care that she'd slept with other men as much as I disliked the idea of marrying a virgin. But to me, it's just, yeah.
I think that we should go back to the text and
well,
talk a little bit more before we wrap up, because it's 5:08.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
What else, Luke? Because I feel like you've pointed us in
good direction.
Well, good direction.
I'm.
Well, I mean, isn't this one of the best love stories the few love stories in the Bible? I mean, between Isaac and Rebecca. I mean, there aren't really many love stories in the Bible.
It does seem to be love at first sight.
And Isaac doesn't take another wife at any point, right?
Right.
Yeah, he's the one monogamous patriarch. It is nice. And he loved her. It says that he loved her. And
who else does it say in the Bible or in the Torah that he loved her? It's like it's not used very much.
It's not?
No.
As far as I'm aware.
Usually he knows her.
But usually it's all about the sex.
But. Right. Well, yeah, or the
multiplication.
Yeah. But no, this you're right. It is a kind of love story.
I picture her with that big nose ring, like a big gold nose ring, and like I just picture her like sort of like almost, I don't know, like a belly dancer or something, because she's, you know, he immediately, he's like, you're Eliezer or whatever, he's like, okay, wait, you're good, I'm gonna put this nose ring on you, and then like I'm gonna give you bracelets, and I just picture her being like, Ruby, you know.
Totally. Yeah, she does, and when she goes home, her brother Laban is so pleased to see her looking so tight. It is kind of.
So
it's colorful. It's colorful.
The key verse, the most beautiful verse in the Parsha is Genesis chapter 24, verse 67. Isaac brought her into the tent of Sarah, his mother. He married Rebekah. She became his wife, and he loved her. And thus was Isaac consoled after his mother.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful.
I mean, it's almost like, obviously there's a lot of taking of wives throughout this text for the purpose of just, you know, of multiplying.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things that Isaac is really missing is that love. And so it's nice that not only does he take this woman to be his wife and to move forward with in a very practical way, but he loves her, and he's consoled because he's got this love sort of to sustain him again after this loss. Yeah, it's a kind of a beautiful little image and story. And there I was earlier, you know, I'm disappointed. I was just focusing on the what I didn't like about the gender relations of it, but it's really nice. Now
you guys claim that Rebecca fell, but according to the Rabbi scroll, overawed by the dignified appearance of the approaching man, Rebecca modestly inclined herself to one side, while still mounted on the camel, in order to turn her face from him. Most other commentators translate literally, she fell, meaning that she alighted quickly from the camel and stood modestly.
So what do you draw?
Then upon hearing that he was Isaac, she veiled herself.
Right.
She alighted from the camel and said to the servant, "Who is this man?"
So she's showing off her modesty.
"That is my master." She took her veil and covered herself. She just doesn't want him to think that she's a floozy.
Is that
right? Well, she's modest.
Yeah, she wants him to
Modesty
know that she's
is
respectable and
Yeah, she doesn't like
a virgin that no man has known. And
Yeah, she wasn't just going to go staring into a strange man's face, but
she's modest.
She was modest.
It reminds me. I don't know. Does she protest too much? It reminds me of what someone once said about New Guinean penis gourds, because they're supposedly for modesty. That it's the most immodest form of modesty I've ever seen. She's very aggressive about demonstrating her modesty.
Right. It's like a fan dance.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen a good burlesque fan dance?
I don't know.
It's great.
Quality,
it's basically.
Could you show us?
I don't have a fan with me, unfortunately. But you know, do a little googling and you'll see it's a perfect comparison, because a fan dance basically is a burlesque dancer who's on stage wearing
nothing but fans.
Very little, if
sure.
anything.
Yeah.
And she's got one of those big, soft, fluffy fans.
Right.
And the way that she dances is she's always got it in front of her, and she turns and she knows exactly the right moment to like flip it so that you never see anything, anything. But you're always thinking you're so close to seeing it that you see it in your mind's eye, you see it in your imagination, and it's more of a thrill not to see it and to be sort of teased with that possible like fan being moved than it is to you know what I mean?
Yes, totally.
It's brilliant.
And that's the kind of, it's not coquettish, but there's just this confident, we referred to it before, this constant confidence with Rebecca, even in the way she demonstrates her modesty. Like there's just she knows what she's doing all the time.
She really does. She knows that what's implied is more important in that moment than what's it.
And I love that Isaac responds to that he loves her, not just knows her, and he only marries her. That's really nice.
So Isaac brought Rebecca into Sarah's tent. When he observed that her actions were like those of Sarah, then he married her.
That's what this commentary says?
Yeah, according to the Bible.
You're just like, you remind me of my mom.
Yeah.
I loved my mom.
Well, men do, there's no getting around it. Mammals are attracted to females that in some way remind them of their mother.
Oh, yes. And that is why a good therapist will tell a woman who's single and looking for a guy, make sure he likes his mother. Because just because they're looking for a woman who like subconsciously reminds them of their mother doesn't mean it's going to work out, because they might loathe their mother. Make sure he likes his mother.
What happens if he hates his mother? That means what? As far as
well, that your parent of the opposite sex, assuming that you grew up in a home with a parent of the opposite sex, is your first role model for how to relate with the opposite sex. And so if you've had a positive relationship with your mother who's made you feel good about who you are and who you respect and everything, you're going to probably have an easier time relating with women romantically.
Right.
So yeah.
Interesting.
Make sure he likes his mother. And he liked his mother.
Interesting. I mean, because in my case, I thought the only thing that I took from my mother is that I tended to be attracted from women with similar ethnic and socioeconomic backgrounds, and there was no reason for that. I was capable of appreciating other women as well, but the personality, I don't know. I guess I should bring it up with my therapist.
Isaac's love was inspired by Rebecca's righteousness and the aptness of deeds, the only criteria upon which the Torah bases the love between husband and wife.
Righteousness and aptness of deeds.
Aptness of deeds. You have really apt deeds. I've never.
That's a cool.
Apt.
Yeah, I kind of.
Aptness of deeds. So what's another way of putting that might be a little bit more clear?
Aptness of deeds.
Or like,
just the right deeds.
You're righteous, baby.
You're righteous,
baby.
Yeah,
like that's
righteous. But so aptness of deeds, like being. I mean, it being exactly the way that she demonstrated she was, initially, which was being aware of and considerate, to other people and thinking of their needs and potentially even placing them before her own at first, and being kind of principled and modest but confident, and all of these very good qualities.
Very apt deeds, and also it's maybe just a simple reminder: find a woman who behaves and lives in the way you like, rather than don't just go for the superficial stuff or whatever. But
because ultimately that's what's going to sustain a relationship. If you have respect for someone, who they are, rather than just how they look,